Hello tanks and tankettes, welcome to a bit of live World of Tanks gameplay, and today is something a bit different. Now you might be thinking, but where have all the tanks gone? And then you might notice, well, it still says PointyHairedJedi, and then you might notice, if you're watching in 1080p, that just underneath that it's got a little thing that tells me the ping to US East and US West. Because I'm on the NA server, yes. Now, I can just show you the service record. I've actually had an NA account for well over a year and a half at this point. More than a year and a half. But it wasn't ever for playing on. It was just for giving prizes to people in the last but one contest, last but two, something like that. And then Wargaming have made it a bit more difficult since to gift stuff across servers. It's not so bad on NA, but on the SEA server, where I also have an account, it's very, very difficult these days, especially with payment options. So I've started afresh, well, kind of, on the NA server for a very specific reason. I had a Patreon contact me, or a prospective patron, and ask if it would be possible to play on the NA server. So I thought, you know, there's one way to find out. So what I did was I downloaded the NA client and I've started on the Russian line, and I'm specifically going to go for the probably the IS-7, maybe the KV, not KV4. Well, maybe the KV4, maybe the IS-4 line. Either way, I can choose from, where are we? Once I get to the T-46 and the KV1, I can then choose which one I want to go up. Now, I'm quite familiar with them both. It's kind of a toss-up at this point, which I might actually choose. But the reason why I'm doing this, well, the ping is about 4 times my normal ping on EU. So it's playable, but it's definitely noticeable. And going up, for instance, the British medium line, or the French medium line, or basically any of the medium lines that require, well, not only good reflexes, but decent ping to get on well with, it seemed like a less good idea than going with a line of heavies that I'm familiar with that are fairly reliable. So I'm going to do that. But it has meant going through the T-46 and the T-46, which I've never played before. And the T-46 I've only played 2 battles in. So I've got the 76mm Derpy L10 and I think a couple of other things. But Tier 3, of course, is the point where you can suddenly start meeting Tier 5s, or you suddenly start getting +2 matchmaking, like this. So we'll see how it goes. This might be terrible. Like I said, this is my very third match. It's my very third match, yes. The first 2 I was actually top tier, but this one, I don't know what I can do, quite honestly. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. The other thing I could note is, that I will note, is that I actually, to get it downloaded quicker, went for the SD client rather than the HD client. So if you notice any particular difference with textures, it's that. Although, honestly, it's not that big of a difference. There is some, but I don't think it really is that big of a difference. Right, so the question is, where the hell do I go with this matchmaking? I mean, I could sit at the back here and try and, I don't know, fire at stuff frontally. That seems like a really terrible idea. Or I could go on the other side and maybe there might be a bit more happening. I mean, there's a couple of Tier 5 mediums going over here as well, but this is terrible matchmaking. I mean, this is as bad as it gets, pretty much. And one of the reasons why I've argued for a while and done multiple videos on the subject, and I know Circle's talked about it as well, is that the +2 matchmaking is not particularly good, and especially at the low tiers, Tier 3, Tier 4, it is rough. It is really rough. And a big part of it, which I hadn't even really considered previously, and which I suppose I should have been, like, it's kind of obvious in retrospect, is that one thing that you can do with, well, there we go, coming back to the lower tiers, you can gain a massive advantage by having crews that are trained. And when you're just starting out an account, especially with no premium account, you basically don't have a lot of choice, because you start off with your tier 1s, at least these days you start off with your tier 1s with 100% crew. So you retrain to your next tier up, and at the same time, yeah, suddenly you've lost a big chunk of that XP, and then you train a tier up, and you lose even more crew training, and then you etc etc etc. So by the time you get to tier 4, actually you start off with crappier crews than you started the game with the tier 1s, and the crew training costs are pretty damn prohibitive when you're playing at the low tiers, because the XP is not very much, but the credits income is not very much either. And so people that can roll around with fully trained crews and equipment have a massive advantage. And I was able to take advantage myself of the fact that with a little bit of grinding, I was able to afford credit crew training to both tier 2 and tier 3 to lessen the impact, because it was half off on the NA server. So it was 10,000 credits a piece rather than... is he just going to sit there? Rather than the usual 20,000 credits a piece, but still 30. That's 60,000 credits I've spent already on low tier machines. Right, so basically, I mean, I got a lucky kill without Sherman having shots on his side and rear, but there's not a whole lot I can do to turn this around. Not in a tier 5 game. I'm just along for the ride, basically. Oh, he's firing Prem. What a pro! What a pro! So yeah, it's not fun. It's definitely not fun, and I already knew it was not fun, and now I'm kind of experiencing it at the sharp end all over again. Because the first time round I went through all this, of course, I didn't know any better, and these days I'm coming at it with the benefit of a lot more experience. Now, the HE, it does nothing! Oh, and there's artillery. Oh, and he's still shooting at me. How is he still shooting at me? Oh, it's a BT-7 back there. Okay, that's why. So my gun is injured, but you know what? I'm not sure if I can actually afford to heal him. Anyway. So yeah, no equipment on this tank at all. It's just entirely rolling around. I think actually, did they give me a camo net? I can't remember. There's a bunch of low tier stuff. I mean, it's a little better than it was when I started. And I don't know if it's just NA, but they gave me a rental Tetrarch for 5 battles, and I was able to grind some credits that way, and that came with a free 100% crew, so that was nice. And there's a bunch of, like, you win X number of battles, and hey, have this, and here's a one-time free free XP conversion. And here's a free camo net. So there's various things where it's a little better than when I started, but the fundamental experience of this, being in this kind of matchmaking, being in this kind of match, and just being basically more or less free hit points for the enemy team, because your crews suck, because you don't have the equipment on your tanks, because you don't have the hit points, because you don't have the gun. Yeah, it's not a great experience, and it's kind of not been surprising to me that the low tiers on NA, that they're struggling for low tier server population. And I think it's not as bad on EU, but still sometimes, you play the wrong time of day and you're guaranteed bottom tier matchmaking just because it can't find enough same tier tanks to put you in top tier matchmaking. So we might actually win this one by cap. I killed, an enemy Sherman, but look at the damage I've done. And yeah, it was against high tiers, but I'm not going to get much for this. Anyway, they've had a KV-1 that's come back, but I'm pretty sure we can win this. I'm pretty sure. Although this BT-7, if he's smart, he can reset. But the question is, will he risk it? I think he's going to try, though. The T1 Heavy's basically... Oh, there we go. He's angling a bit more, but still. Is he firing up? Oh, and he's going to burn. And he burned. So, yeah, it's been interesting coming back to this. And we'll play another game after this. This was a fairly short one. And it's definitely reinforced my feeling that even if you don't do it at the high tiers, +1, -1, at least up to tier 4... arguably maybe even tier 5, I think there's no real reason why not. And it's with the current state of things, it's no real shock to me that there is this trouble with keeping the lower tiers populated. Because it's just, you get to about tier 3 and suddenly the wonder of the tier 1 and 2 and just running around with autocannons and blapping everything, it's worn off by that point, and it's just like, oh, track him. No, I was about to say that. It's just, yeah, it's suddenly, hey, look, there's tier 5s, and you can't do anything about it. Have fun. Yeah, it does not make for a good game experience. Oh, this T1 Heavy should be showing his front armour. He might actually die from this engagement. Not that the KV1's playing especially well, but the T1 Heavy is kind of giving it away. Yeah. And can the Type 95 do anything about it? Probably not. Nope, not with his gun. He's basically screwed. You can spot for artillery, that's literally it. He has very little chance of damaging the KV1. T-47 will probably get this guy though. He's going to come up from an unexpected direction. So yeah, I mean, I've seen people arguing. In fact, there was what, 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was actually a guy brave enough to come on Circon's on the TeamSpeak, and they spent an hour talking about it. And the gist of the guy's argument was that he felt it added variety. And, you know, you could say that, I suppose. I mean, I don't think it's a good argument. A bad variety of things is still a variety, I suppose. But it's like when people say, you know, artillery, you're in a game with artillery and it's like a whole other experience. It's like a whole other game. It's like you've got this one class of vehicles that makes for a very different gameplay experience, whether it's in the battle or not. Yeah, but one of those gameplay experiences sucks compared to the other. It's not a good argument in my eyes. It really isn't. Anyway, no, that was crap XP, crap credits. That was my reward for that matchmaking. Despite managing to getting lucky enough with the gun to kill a tier 5. That was my reward. So yeah, it is not at all a shock to me. Not at all a shock that people get to tier 3 and tier 4 and just give up. And you get this anecdotal relation from people a lot, like, oh, I tried to get my friend into it, but they hit that threshold. Or that was the point where they went, nope, not doing that anymore. And I can't blame them. I really can't blame them. So, yeah, let's try this again. And I might get a tiny bit more crew XP, but I don't know. That alone, if you could have... I mean, doing it in a way where people wouldn't just abuse the hell out of it, or putting limitations in place, it would be difficult. And maybe Wargaming just can't think of a good way to do it. But it would be nice if crew XP would like the training costs or the XP costs or whatever, would somehow scale up until you get to, say, maybe tier 4 or tier 5, because it's really rough at the low tiers and it puts everybody at a serious disadvantage against the seal clubbers. And you know, I have this experience myself when I've got a whole range of machines on my EU account. Like take the Cruiser 4 for example, or the AMX-40. Right, I've got those fully decked out. In fact, the Cruiser 4 is nearly on its that crew's nearly on its second crew skill. AMX-40, I think they're still the first crew skill, but you know, they've got, I don't even know how much equipment on them, but you could easily, like, you get to my kind of stage of the game, 20,000 plus battles, you can easily afford to, well, I say afford, you can, if you want to, put on 1.5, 1.6 million credits worth of equipment on a tank that costs 1,600 credits. Which seems a bit ridiculous, a bit silly, but you can easily do that if you really want to. And that gives you a huge advantage. And having fully trained crews gives you a huge advantage. So, I don't know. I don't know how you would fix that. And I don't know how you'd fix the crew training. I don't know how you'd make that less frustrating for people. How you would reduce that disparity without people then abusing it to get cheap crews that they then retrain for higher tier tanks. So, I don't know. Unless there's some really simple, obvious way of was that random enemy artillery shell? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe there is some obvious solution. Maybe I'm just making up difficulties in my head. Maybe Wargaming just never have done it because reasons. I don't know. Also, even at low tiers, this has been another thing that I have found out all over again for myself. Even at lower tiers, artillery makes life oh so fun. Right, I'm actually fast enough to, probably not at this point, fast enough to actually get up there. Now, this, by the way, the T-46, I was looking at this and looking at the guns on it and thinking, you know what? Wait, that's an M7. Okay. Even on this, the guns on this are almost as good as the guns on the AMX-40. This is actually, like, in terms of firepower, the AMX-40 could be a tier 3. Very, 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 very easily. I'm gonna do it! I'm gonna do it! YOLO! YOLO! YOLO, you guys! I might actually get away with it as well, because everybody's got really crap crews. Right, it's my hill now, you can't have it, it's mine. Of course, they're all going to be looking this way at this point. So yeah, it's a bit. It makes me very sad when I look at my MX-40 and think, yeah, but why does it have to be so bad when there's a tier 3 with pretty much better guns? It just doesn't make any sense. But whatever. Wargaming's decisions frequently don't. Right, can I auto aim on this AMX-38 and kind of snapshot some HE at him, because his armor, like when you're top tier in an AMX-38, the gun sucks, but the armor's pretty decent. The tier 2, the H-35, that's another one which is, you know, well, if I ever take it out, I'm pretty much seal cloning. Oh, hello. It's an M2 medium. But, yeah, it has decent armor, but the gun's so bad, and it can see tier 5s, and it's just like, why would you? Oh, did that track him? Oh god. It's got quite the reload on it, this. Is anyone going to help me? No, this is a tier 3 game. Teamwork is another thing that exists. Meanwhile, artillery is just pelting me. Right, are you gonna... Somebody gonna... Oh, there we go. That slight delay when I shot him. Yeah, that's the ping in action. So, it's... Yeah. In addition to all the unpredictability of the low tiers, I mean, at least this is a top tier game. You get all the fun of like, hey, everyone's crew sucks, and hey. It's I don't know. And I can definitely compensate to some extent with my skill, but even so, if I was coming to this now, like these days, I would say to people, if you want to try out a tank game, try out Armoured Warfare, because that is so much kinder to its new players. It's a lot better balanced, and it in terms of artillery mechanics, in terms of the matchmaking, in terms of how much the premiums cost. Yeah, Armoured Warfare is a lot better for new players, absolutely, and it's hard to... I mean, they're in a position where they can come along and say, you know, they can look at what World of Tanks does and they can say, okay, we'll do this better, and we'll do this better, and we'll do this better. But the thing is, World of Tanks then needs to adapt and change to meet that. Oh, by the way, that's one of the new... I've not seen these up close. This is the new Tier 3. This is a replacement for the T-82. And this is what the T-18 turned into. An artillery piece. Still looks pretty much the same, but I think it's a little bit different. So yeah, these days, you know, if Wargaming are smart, they'll realise this, they'll change some things. Maybe, but they've seemed curiously reluctant, especially in terms of matchmaking, to do anything on that front. And as far as the rest of it goes, I don't know, they keep trying to... I mean, they've done things like, you know, here's free days of premium and here's a rental Tetrarch, and okay, fair enough, but they keep just slapping more things like that into the game, and things like personal missions and things that are trying to get you to play, but they require you to get past that hump of the low tiers to get to kind of tier 5, tier 6. And I think a lot of people just don't make it past that hump, and I really can't... I mean, I feel like this is a relatively easy thing to fix. And in fact, there are multiple changes, multiple, different ways you could do this. There's multiple different ways to skin this particular cat. What do you want to bet this is going to be a draw now? They're down to 3 tank destroyers and 2 arty. We're down to... Well, because we've got a cruiser 3, but he's just being very, very passive. Yeah, I don't know. So, low tiers. I mean, it's unpredictable, and then you get to tier 3, and it's not only unpredictable, but you get matchmaking crapping all over you as well. So, the unpredictable I can live with, but the matchmaking crapping all over me is less fun. A hell of a lot less fun, and it's been interesting coming back to the low tiers with this amount of experience and knowledge that I have now after playing the game for I don't even know how many years. And of course Fosh did exactly the same thing on the IU server, but I think his was more of an experiment to see how far he could get, how much he could stand with only playing a non-premium account. And I might give in and buy some premium time for myself on NA, I'm not sure. But for the low tiers especially, it doesn't seem that necessary. And the greatest temptation has actually been to buy some gold and just get some fully trained crews. But that would seem like a tremendous waste of gold. Spend it on low tiers. Anyway, I think we'll go back to Garage. I mean, at this rate, this is going to be a draw. Nobody wants to move, apparently, so that's fine. It might be a win, it might be a loss. I guess you'll just never know, fair viewer, wherever you may be. So before we wrap this up, I also want to say, yeah, I've not put up a lot of videos in the last couple of days. I've not been feeling that great. I mean, you know about my arm already, and I just... Monday was fine. I did actually 2 videos on Monday, and then just the rest of this week, I've just gone... Blah, like someone's just let all the air out, and... I don't know, it's been what it's been, but I don't know, maybe we can get back into gear over the weekend and we'll see how it goes. So, yeah, if you've enjoyed this fresh look at low tiers, you can leave any comments on the subject below. I'm sure there'll be 1 or 2 after the things I've said. You can hit the like button, you can subscribe to my channel, and as always, stay tuned for more.